Those Days with the Monsters, Part 20. At some point, Kirill woke up to darkness and quiet mechanical beeping. Somewhere nearby, something was alternately droning and hissing. He lay still for a moment before realising that his talons had ripped up the bottom of the sheets. Why the Cumans kept wrapping him up when they knew he ripped their sheets was beyond him. "Well, look who's awake." Bashful's light voice and gentle drawl drew his attention, and beside him a little blue hologram blinked into existence, about a third the height of the Cumans on the ship. "You worried us, Squishy."
"Not squishy,"
Kirill muttered quietly.
"What happened?"
Bashful's face changed slightly. The translator couldn't tell what her expression was, but Kirill thought that maybe it was slightly annoyed. "Oh, sugar, that's a long story, but the short version is that we missed one bacterial species. One. It responded to our preventative cocktail by multiplying. It only lasts about 2 hours once it falls off the body at that point, and it takes only 3 days before it burns itself out and is wiped from the body. But those 3 days are apparently dangerous for non-human species. Sleepy said you probably caught it from the telescope, 'cause he put his eye to it before you did." She bared her teeth in a way that looked startlingly gentle. "He felt awful about it, so don't be too mad at him, sugar." Kirill nodded slowly.
"That explains a lot."
He paused.
"Why am I not hungry? They said 5 days?"
6 now. We're giving you a parenteral." Bashful gestured with a glowing blue hand to a bag full of yellow fluid and one half full of a thicker white liquid. "Sorry, sugar. I shouldn't abbreviate these things with you. Parenteral nutrition. Feeding you without feeding you, if that makes sense." Kirill raised one arm to his spinning head, choosing the one that didn't have tubes hooked up to it.
"Is this another Death World thing? You have so many kinds of death that you have to find a way to feed people while you stop them from dying?"
Bashful nodded, her teeth bared and a bright look in her eyes. "Exactly. See, you're learning. Sam will be so happy when I tell him."
"Sam?"
Bashful's glowing blue face turned a much deeper shade. Kirill's frills flared slightly in alarm, wondering what this change meant. "Samuel Jones, he's my husband." She made a light little sound, almost like a gasp and a squeak in one, and covered her cheeks with her hands. "Oh, look at me, blushing like a child, I can't help it."
"Blushing?"
Kirill sat up slightly, his frills pricking up.
"What's blushing?"
"Oh, it's..." Kirill's frills flared as a pattern he didn't understand scrolled rapidly over Bashful's eyes. Suddenly it vanished, and she bared her teeth in the Cuman way. "It's similar to how your frills turn purple. For some of us, our faces turn red when we're embarrassed or shy or, well..." Bashful's face turned a deeper shade again. "For me, it happens when I remember that I caught that man."
"What?"
Kirill could feel the teal creeping into his frills.
"Is this a species thing or a Death World thing?"
Bashful's amusement noise sounded loud in the hushed room. "Oh, it's an expression. It means that I think he's wonderful, and I think he could have married a much better person than me, and I feel lucky that he picked me." Kirill tilted his head, thinking. That sounded different from the LM social structure.
"So, does that mean that you're more bonded to him than you're..."
He tried to think of a good synonym for clutch. He wasn't happy with the one he settled on, but it would have to do.
"Your social birth group?"
"Social?" Kirill could see the pattern flash over Bashful's eyes for a moment, as she stood with a blank expression. Then she bared her teeth and made the amusement noise. "We call them families, or sometimes clans or tribes depending on where you are. I'd say everyone on this ship would probably understand family better, unless you want to confuse them, which of course I would entirely support." Suddenly, the look on her face dropped. Kirill's translator informed him that her look was earnest. "Yes, absolutely. Without question, Sam comes first, and always will. Ask him, and he'd say the same. He's done the same." Kirill blinked in confusion, but Bashful shook her head with gently bared teeth. Kirill wondered when he'd learned to tell the difference between bared teeth and gentle bared teeth. It almost certainly wasn't instinctive. "I know you want to ask, but later." Bashful's soft drawl was soothing, and Kirill felt himself, against his wishes, sinking back comfortably onto the bed. "It's a Death World thing, and you need a rest. Doc will be so angry if I rile you up while he's sleeping."
Doc is sleeping?
He wore himself out trying to save you. Bashful's smile was accompanied this time by a drip of fluid shown by the hologram running down her cheek. She wiped it and made a funny sort of sniffing sound. "He did some things he really shouldn't have. Cap had to hold him back a few times from doing stupid things. Sleepy didn't help, of course. Half the time Sleepy volunteered to help. But Doc, he'll probably sleep close to 18 hours after what he did." Kirill sighed, squirming a bit for a more comfortable spot. The liquid dripping into his arm felt a bit cold, but even so his body temperature was almost perfect.
Do all the Kumans do that?
Only when something is so important that they forget to take care of themselves. Kirill's frills rose a bit, turning red and fuchsia with alarm and curiosity.
There's something that important to Kumans?
He couldn't imagine anyone forgetting to do things like sleep, especially not a species that seemed to need it as much as the Kumans did. There could be a lot of things. Sometimes it's from fear of punishment, but usually... Bashful bared her teeth just a bit. "Well, one of Sam's old friends said we do what we do out of sheer will, and we make the decision to stand in front of a brutal world and tell it no. Not this time. Not here, not today. So when Doc did what he did, he said no. Not you, not today. And he kept saying not today minute by minute for 5 days in a row." Kirill took a moment to digest this information. Finally, he looked back at Bashful's glowing blue face, and the word trying to force its way out of his mouth took shape.
Why?
The pattern raced in front of Bashful's eyes again. "I don't understand what you're asking."
Why did he go so far for a cargo jockey?
Bashful's expression of gently bared teeth vanished in an instant. "Emotion read failure. Please try again." Great, it was glitching again. "Oh, sugar, do you really not understand it?" Kirill shook his head, then paused.
Did the DIA still not lift the official contact-only designation? Am I still your only contact with them?
That made sense. He was their only gateway to the galaxy at large. Of course they would want to protect him. Bashful paused for a moment. Her flexible Kuman mouth muscles pressed together in a tight line. Finally she spoke. Her voice was lower than before, and a little bit shaky. She didn't seem sad though. A shiver ran through Kirill as he thought she seemed more angry than mournful. "Is that what they told you?"
The DIA haven't told me anything since I reached out about the Tizik's bounties. They don't tell me things like that. It would be a waste of time.
"Then where did you hear something like that?"
It's the only explanation I could think of.
Yellow nervousness tinged Kirill's frill spines. What had he said to upset Bashful this way? After a minute of quiet, during which the patterns flicked over Bashful's eyes again, she spoke softly. They really did a number on you, didn't they?"
I don't know what you mean.
Kirill was relieved that she didn't seem to be angry at him, but she still seemed upset, and that bothered him. "I should go. Get some rest, and try not to let Doc snoring keep you up." The hologram vanished, leaving Kirill suddenly wide awake in the dark.
Wait, what's snoring?
He asked the silent room. Thank you for listening to Those Days with the Monsters, episode 20. Read by A Good Bean. Had some trouble recording this episode, but hopefully you enjoyed it still.